Since her transition, the 40-year-old says she's lost physical strength, but says the focus on the advantages competitors like her may have overlooks the physical variations among all athletes.
I just wish people would try to understand what a lived trans experience is like. Trans women just want to go out and live a life and play sport like anyone else. I'm sure if you look into sport, there are people out there who have these, these advantages which people celebrate. And they just say, this person's amazing. Wow, look how good they are. Look how fast they are. Look how high they can climb, whatever it is. And yet, as soon as we look at transgender women, it's like a completely different set of rules. And that to me feels like blatant discrimination.
皆さんこんにちは。今回はトランスジェンダー女性の女性スポーツ参加に対して世の中の動きをまとめたイギリスの公共放送 BBC の報道を英語と日本語字幕付きで見て本場の英語を学びましょう。それではどうぞ。
Sex-based segregation is how competitive sport has recognised the performance advantages that male athletes have over females in many disciplines.
It's going to be her fourth gold medal, her fourth title.
But what if the pursuit of fairness and safety comes at the cost of inclusion?
I think it's just so sad, the whole toxic debate.
Any trans female who is included in sport excludes another biological female.
Sports now find themselves in the middle of a heated debate over their policies towards trans women competitors in the female categories of events.
Even if that group does have some advantages, trans women will never take over women's sport.
You either have to have fairness by exclusion of trans women, or you must accept a degree of unfairness through the inclusion of trans women.
Stand up for women!
Sports will have to make that difficult decision.
New Zealander Laurel Hubbard, the first openly transgender athlete to compete in a different sex category to that which they were born at an Olympics. Her participation in the women's weightlifting in Tokyo last year sparked accusations of unfairness as well as support. As did the case of American swimmer Leah Thomas, a trans athlete who'd competed for her university men's team before winning a women's national college title in March. Like Hubbard, she'd met eligibility rules requiring her to lower her testosterone, but her victory divided opinion.
Heat, spark, seatbelt set!
Do you understand that that women have absolutely zero chance of winning?
A woman is winning.
But the debate was about to intensify here in Britain. In March, a 21-year-old trans woman cyclist, Emily Bridges, previously one of the country's most promising male junior riders, was due to compete in her first women's event at the National Championships, having also reduced her testosterone. But with some of her rivals threatening to boycott the race and Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying transgender women should not be allowed to compete in female sporting categories, just days before the event, cycling's world governing body barred her from taking part, her case now under review. A dismayed Bridges said no one should have to choose between being who they are and participating in the sport they love. British Cycling suspended its transgender policy in the wake of the Emily Bridges case, pending a full review. And the governing body has now called for a coalition of organisations to come together and try and find what it called a better answer to the situation. A number of sports now desperately trying to find a way of handling this issue. With very few athletes prepared to comment, we've spoken to two British current elite female runners, one of whom's an Olympian, who both told us that women's sport must be protected. The athletes requested to be kept anonymous for fear of a social media backlash and a risk of losing sponsorship.
Every single female athlete I've spoken to is scared to speak out. The whole point of competition is to make it a fair and level playing field. And the only way to do that is to have a female category and then a male open category where the trans women can compete.
You can see all the world records are so much further, faster, whatever you want to use, than female world records. And that should be the evidence in itself, because trans women are biologically male, so they are at an advantage. There is so much more that differentiates men and women, and so much more benefits that males have than just testosterone.
On the other side of this debate are trans women like British racing driver Charlie Martin. Since her transition, the 40-year-old says she's lost physical strength, but says the focus on the advantages competitors like her may have overlooks the physical variations among all athletes.
I just wish people would try to understand what a lived trans experience is like, and then really try and understand this argument that's being put at trans women that they're trying to ruin female sport. No one wants that. Trans women just want to go out and live a life and play sport like anyone else. I'm sure if you look into sport, there are people out there who have these advantages which people celebrate, and they just say, this person's amazing, wow, look how good they are, look how fast they are, look how high they can climb, whatever it is. And yet as soon as we look at transgender women, it's like a completely different set of rules. And that to me feels like blatant discrimination.
2 years ago, World Rugby became the first international sports federation to say transgender women should not compete in the elite women's game on safety grounds. And one of the sports scientists behind the policy insists fairness in other sports cannot be achieved through just testosterone suppression.
Once testosterone has done its work during puberty, and we see increased muscle mass, bone density changes, the shape of the skeleton changes, the heart and the lung, the hemoglobins. All of those things are significant contributors to performance. Now, until it can be shown that that advantage doesn't persist or exist in trans women, then I would say that there's no basis to allow trans women in.
But last year, in a reversal of its previous policy, the International Olympic Committee placed the burden on individual sports to decide their own eligibility criteria, concluding there should be no presumption that trans women have an automatic advantage. A transgender sports scientist who has advised the IOC told me the threat to women's sport has been overstated.
So the question isn't, do trans women have advantages, but can trans women and cisgender women compete against one another in meaningful competition? Truthfully, the answer isn't definitive yet, and certainly in all sports, we don't know. The science is in its infancy, and we are not going to have definitive answers for probably 20 years.
But as the debate continues, the sense is that having tried to find a balance between fairness, safety and inclusion, sports now find themselves under unprecedented pressure to choose which to prioritise in what is one of the biggest issues now confronting them.
いかがでしたか？トランス女性が女性スポーツに参加することに関して、個人的には解決策は別カテゴリーを作るしかないと思っています。動画の途中でトランス女性のレーサーが身体の特徴が個人個人違うことと性別の違いを同じように扱うべきと取れる発言がありましたが、さすがにそれは無理があると思います。スポーツごとに必要に応じて体重別で階級を分けるということはすでにやっていますし、区別することがいけないというのであれば、女性スポーツと男性スポーツを分けること自体やめようという話にもできますし、そうなると女性たちが迷惑を被ることは明らかです。またトランス女性に対して差別を感じると言っていましたが、差別と区別が違うことを理解してもらう必要があると思います。皆さんのコメントをお聞かせください。このチャンネルでは英語が楽しく学べる動画をアップしていきます。よろしければいいね、チャンネル登録よろしくお願いします。それではまた。